off, or would you tend to go more boundaryless? Just think about that for a minute. When you get stressed, which way would you go? So just think about that. When you get in stress, which side of the boundaries would you go? Do you go like all in a hole and like retreat? Sorry. Or would you more be boundaryless? You want other people to help you fix it for you and fix everything so that you feel better. Which way would you go when you're in stress? Think about that. And if you're in a relationship with someone, think, where do they go? Do they go more walled off, or are they more boundaryless? And just note if you're the same or you're different. It's just interesting. I opened it and I pushed off by mistake, thinking I was pushing it on. So what we're going to be doing now is top one, I think. Putting these two together, the self-esteem and the boundaries. It's showing there, but we might have to push PowerPoint. That one. Maybe have to push this over here, because it goes to the slide that.
You just need to go back to the PPT, right?
Yeah, just
The mouse is not working? Because your mouse is here on the screen.
There we go. All right. So we're going to put the two together. So when we put the two together, and here in the vertical, we have our self-esteem, the grandiosity is on the top, and the shame is on the bottom. And then if you're, the boundaryless is on the right, and over there, more walled off. So we want to think where we go when we're not in our higher self, when we're maybe under stress or something like that. See, most of the time, we're in our circle of health. It's not that we're all this, it's just on the one day when you're kind of off, which direction would you head towards? Yeah. Yeah. So if you're boundaryless and one up, you're going to tend to want to control things, and you're probably going to be a little bit angry if it's not going your way. And you're going to be more like where the small dot is, right? All abusers are going to be up in this far corner up here. Now, I fall in this quadrant, and I have not been abusive, except for I can be a little grouchy and, control and yell. So that's to give the extreme. And then, so where do you go? So when I feel stressed, I need to control the situation to get rid of my stress, right? And try to, I can be a little snarky. So I would fall there. If you're boundaryless and one down, you're going to be a little bit more desperate for somebody to come and fix you. And so your control is going to show up as more manipulation. You're going to try to manipulate them to get what you want. But you need them to change so that you'll be happy. When you go across the shame boundary and you're in the walled off and one down, you're going to be a little bit resigned. Oh, you just can't fix anything. You just got to live with it. If it's extreme, you're going to go to depression, and you're going to go to withdrawal. So, you know, when I get grumpy and controlling, my husband goes behind his wall and goes and... No use fighting about this. Let her have her way. Let's get out of here. Right? So, and then if you're walled off and one up, it's going to be quite a lot of indifference, more so like really, oops, sorry. I'm just getting some examples here. And that's where, you know, you're just not worth engaging in some discussion with or whatever. And if a person's like kind of passive aggressive, they're going to be up there. So it's a lot dependent upon how we were brought up. Sometimes if you know, our parents were really pushy and wanted us to do everything their way, you can go either side. You can go walled off, like I don't want this anymore, or you can take it on yourself. Oh, this is what you do when you're an adult. You try to control everything. So it's definitely how you've learned, either by modeling or by going the opposite way. And sometimes when people are in the one-up, maybe if they're one-up and boundaryless, another way you could get there is if you're just kind of that spoiled kid that you want everything your way and your parents never stopped you. Maybe they weren't controlling or but they just didn't stop you from controlling everybody else to get it your way so that you're happy. So that's 3 ways you can go up there: by modeling, by doing the opposite, or by nobody stopping you. So we want to see which direction that we go. And you're thinking of yourself in your worst. We're not, you know, that's the only, you have to think of kind of when you're at your worst, then it helps you to know where you have a tendency to go. And for sure, we don't go to our worst all the time, but we just go a little bit in that direction. So if, say, you were in the one-up and walled off over there, you know, what you would say to somebody when you're angry: I can't be bothered with you, you're just scum. You know, that's the worst. I'm talking worst. You know, that's kind of where that one's heading. If you're one down and walled off, I give up. You know, you can't win. I'm not even going to bother trying. You go over there. If you are one down, that's that one. Oh, if you're one up and boundaryless, you're going to be, I'm going to tell you all the ways that you're wrong and bad and what you need to do to change. And if you are one down and boundaryless, it's like, I'm just helpless without you, you got to rescue me. Got to come and save me. Now that's at the worst. So then there's all the variations on the theme. So you just kind of want to see which direction you'd head to. So, just...
Do you want to do that slide after? Shows like the...
You want to do that?
Maybe after the exercise.
Okay.
Kind of shows like the extreme.
Yeah, okay.
Good place to go in good form.
Okay. So what we're going to get you to do right now is, if you tend to go walled off and one up, you're going to come up here and you can sit on the chairs at the front and talk to your groups on how you managed to do that and what it looks like when you go like that, because everyone's going to relate to you, right? If you are boundaryless and one up, you're going to go over here. If you are boundaryless and one down, you're going to sit at the chairs at the back just for a few minutes. Same as and then, no, I'm doing it so they can look here and they just have to mimic it. Where you're looking at it this way. Don't confuse us. And then, So you're just going to go basically like it is. So you're going to go to your quadrants that match up with this, and just sit with all your friends who are just like you, and you can talk about what you do when you get like that, and even what helps you to get out of it. So off you go to your corners. And do you have a question? Oh, you're just trying to figure it out. Well, figuring this out, sorry.
Okay, I'm not able to differentiate between boundaryless one up and boundaryless one down. I'm for sure boundaryless, but I don't know whether it's one up or one down.
Down below, you want others to fix it. Up above, you want to stay in control.
Others to fix it means
Down.
okay, so that means I want others to look after the situation rather than me.
Yeah, so you'll manipulate it so they'll do it also, the way you like, but you're not going to do it. You want them to do it.
Or you just give up and whatever.
No. But she's talking on this side.
Boundaryless, yeah.
No, just go to the one that you are most likely.
My question is this, that I mean, looking at this, and we were also discussing which one we are. So we exhibit all of these
You
in
do a two-step.
different situations.
Yeah, for sure. So, are you a therapist?
No.
Okay. Therapists go everywhere. Go to the one that you're most likely to go to first when you're at your worst. I know when you go there and that doesn't work, you're going to go over there. So go to your first go-to. Yeah, for sure we do bounce around a bit. Are you partnered with anybody? No, okay. If you are in a relationship with somebody, you want to pick where you go with them because they're the ones that are going to trigger you the most. And if you don't know where you go, just ask your partner. They'll happily tell you. So give it a try, and if you get there, you'll just, talk to people about something or other, and if you figure out it's the wrong one, whatever. You got to talk to somebody. Okay, so off you go. No shame in anything. So he's trying to figure out where he's supposed to go. Walled off and one down's back there. No. Oh, see, just stand there and look at the map and go in your corner. Tough luck. You can lie. I'm just here to see what it feels like over here in case I want to come. You live in community. You can go where you can fake it, but everybody else is going to know you're faking it because they're going to know you, so it's no use. Okay, let's all go back to our centers of health in our own little chairs.
Haribo, Haribo.
Does anybody want to share anything from that? Any deep realization they got? Some aha moment? Or you already did it with your groups? Want to pass to who's got the mic? Okay, thanks.
I was just thinking while everyone was sharing their reflections, and then we were also discussing how to put a check on it. And I'm thinking bhakti is actually amazing because it definitely allows you to take a break, pause, and becomes that disconnect. Like Jagadatma and I were discussing in the same group that when we are controlling and angry and we have caused damage, then what is the best thing to do? And we both agreed that, like, it's japa is very strong, and so just taking a break to chant a few rounds and then coming back in our higher self to talk. So just realizing the value of bhakti too, and that pushes us from those quadrants towards a healthy state, the circle in between.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
We're just so fortunate to have it. The bhakti,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
a big help. So if we're over here, you know, we need to do that self-esteem, like, okay, we're not like God's gift to humanity here, you know, like bring ourselves down a little bit, right? And if we're down, it's like, you know, I bring ourselves up and ask for what we need respectfully, you know, instead of the demanding. So we're not putting ourselves in those categories to label ourselves. We're seeing it so that we know how to act in a better way, and to come to that center of health. We can see quite quickly that, okay, does it have to really be my way, and do I have to manipulate it? Maybe I can just let go, you know? So lots of leaders come over here, right? Because, you know, so we can understand that there's better ways to do it. We don't have to be quite so controlling, right? And cool our anger, right? Anybody else have anything?
Thank you. When I was thinking about it, I was able to create a difference between. So I used to think that this is a nature of humility or something, but then I was able to separate that, okay, there's this line between humility and low self-esteem and what I have to work on. At the same time, to ask for respect, as you mentioned, where we need it. And this is more like a question. Wait, it was just in my mind. Come on. It was just here. Yeah, so basically, technically, when I think of being on the upper level, like one step above, there's always this kind of fear that I don't want to be so bossy or I don't want to boss around. At the same time, I want to be on the humble side. So when we are in this right bottom, boundaryless and down. So how do we encourage ourselves? Because whenever I think of being a little bit like, okay, Prabhus, we have to like deal with it or something, at the same time, I don't want to feel bossy.
You ask, would it be all right if I shared with you what we need right now? And, you know, We're trying to get something done. Could I make a few suggestions here? We have to contract before we boss. We don't have a right to boss anybody around, so you don't want to be bossy. That's good. And you can say, well, we're trying to get this organized, and I have a few ideas, and can I share them with you? You know, and it would be good if this could happen on time, and are you willing to, you know, be here by then, or whatever. You just ask for the cooperation instead of telling. So basically switch from controlling to requesting, or complaining to requesting. Because you probably go more for complaint because you don't want to actually say it, so you'll just subtly complain. Do I have it right?
Anyone from anyone from the introverted, walled off, one down group want to share? Can we have the microphone up here? Oh, sorry, whoever.
So I think when I shared how I feel when I'm going through that situation, so we came on a conclusion that we have to have a discussion on how we are feeling so we can feel more connected, and we need to have an open dialogue because that's what we struggle with, especially because we just like isolate. Actually, I shouldn't use we, I isolate and not talk about things, and I just tend to like forget it. So yeah, and
I doubt you forget it, you just hold it in.
yeah, you're right.
Some of us more experienced, seasoned, walled-off one-downers express what happens if you wall it off for too long. You become like an Indian pressure cooker eventually.
And then, and the worst thing is that then it doesn't go out on the people you're angry with, but like it goes off like in weird situations where nothing's too wrong, but you're just like, yeah. And the other aspect of, I really like it that Prabhu was sharing a story in which about a man whose main value was of spirituality, but when he jot down the values that were most important to him, spirituality was at the top, but he wasn't doing anything in spirituality, so then he was dissatisfied. So it was like an aha moment for me for like, okay, if you're feeling dissatisfied, then write down the values that you have in your life and then see if how much time you're putting in those things. So yeah.
So we're just showing kind of the extremes with these quadrants. So you'll see that the walled off one-ups, they can get pretty mean and nasty. And when you go one down on the walled off, at its worst, you can get depression because you're just so walled off. And then over here, you're going to get desperation. And unfortunately, like I was explaining before, when you're boundaryless and one up, that tends to be where the abusers reside. So very often in our seminars, it wasn't scheduled to be part of this seminar, but we realized that we've always included symptoms of abuse in all of our seminars, because if you're on the one downs, you might think that when abuse is being done to you that it's your fault, and you don't recognize it as abuse, and you're not able to put your boundaries up for it. So we thought that we would just take a few minutes just to describe symptoms of abuse so that we don't mistake it for not being abuse.
So we're just going to go over signs of unhealthy behaviors in relationships. These are not necessarily abuse, but there's symptoms that maybe you need to tweak your relationship. Does anyone have a microphone they want to read these as we pop them up? Sure.
No, I'll read it without it.
Oops.
Signs of unhealthy behaviors.
I don't know why I have to do the most. Here we go.
The
Can you click
couple
those in?
has little or no fun together.
Yeah, so that's... Prabhupada wanted us to chant and be happy.
Yeah. The relationship lacks affectionate dealings.
Srila Prabhupada said that affection was a symptom of life. Actually a symptom of... He didn't just say important, he said it was a symptom of life. So very important there be affectionate relationships.
The couple ignores or avoids problems for each other or each other. One or both spouses act selfishly. The
Next.
couple has repetitive, seemingly irresolvable arguments.
Not quite so fast. So that could, occasionally that might happen, and that's not a major worry, but those are the kind of things you want to fix if they're popping up.
The couple has a general breakdown in communications.
So that can be fixed by learning how to communicate. And they can't understand each other.
Would you say silent treatment is that thing?
It could be silent treatment or you're talking, but neither one of you's understanding.
Okay. Communication is marked by criticism, ridicule, sarcasm, etc.
So that's very unhealthy. Those things are very detrimental to relationships. They're like acid, can eat away a relationship unless they're stopped. But if you realize that's in your relationship, there's things you can do to rectify it.
Sometimes emotional problems or with children. Inappropriate behavior with members of opposite sex. Can you elaborate that? What does that mean?
If somebody, one of the partners was flirting with someone else, that would be very inappropriate. And those kind of things should be nipped in the bud.
Okay. One spouse uses physical confrontation.
So that's very unhealthy. I mean, something like that could be just some situational, one-time, rare things. Maybe someone is a little push or something. It's not like assault or anything, but it's a concern. But it should be fixed immediately if that kind of thing occurs.
One or both spouses discuss or threaten to separate or divorce.
That is not a way to settle a dispute or argument, to threaten like that. So that's something that's very unhealthy, and something you should never do in your relationship is to threaten divorce. Next is signs that raise concern. Yeah.
Your partner has a history of abuse.
Okay, next.
So generally we recommend if you're looking for a partner and they have experienced, they have been an abuser, you want to make sure that they have had enough treatment that they're not likely to keep being an abuser. And so that would probably take quite a bit of time to make sure that that wasn't the case. So just knowing that a person has a history of it would cause some concern, because you'd have to be... later? Okay. You want to talk now or later?
Abuse, as I said earlier, it's the antithesis of Vaishnavism, and abuse is an absolute failure at being compassionate. It's a failure of compassion. So how can someone fail at compassion? Sometimes abusive people on the outside world are amazing, wonderful people, can be productive in society, seem like very nice persons, but somehow in their intimate relationships, something different happens. And what has happened generally with those individuals that they have experienced some kind of, generally serious abuse in youth or childhood. And that can create a type of emotional scar, especially if they've been ridiculed, put down, maybe there was physical violence, maybe even sexual violence, sexual exploitation. It leaves very deep psychological scars. And so they may go on in their life and be successful in life in many ways, but that kind of scar tissue is still going to be there. Has anyone here ever had like a bruised or broken rib? Anyone ever experienced that? You've experienced that. During that recovery, what would you have done if some friend just was going to come up and give you a big hug? Probably would have pushed them away because it hurts like hell. I had a bruised rib, one extremely painful. If you touched it or someone like tried to grab you and give you a hug, painful as heck. So people who have these kind of emotional scars, those scars, especially if someone has been ridiculed, put down in their life as a child, in their adult life, their significant other might say something that's maybe remotely critical. That scar gets triggered. And as I was saying earlier, they will feel the same kind of emotional pain that they felt as a child. And generally, what they will do is respond with how they saw their adult caregiver respond in those kind of situations, which was with like anger. So they'll become extremely angry over some trivial thing because of the trigger response. And why they do that is because when they're becoming angry, and because of the trigger response, as we described earlier about the amygdala causing adrenaline and cortisol to activate one's system, adrenaline is also like a painkiller. So when they're being criticized by their significant other, they feel this wave of intense inadequacy. It triggers that pain, the remembrance of the past, and that trigger creates this flow of adrenaline in their brains which numbs that pain, which they're feeling of this sense of inadequacy. It covers it over. And they literally can become anger, it's called anger junkies. Because every time there's some situation that arises with a significant other that triggers that low self-esteem, the pain gets triggered, so they get angry, and it covers over the pain of the inadequacy. And it tends to be a very cyclical pattern that there's an outburst of anger, exhibition, possibly physical violence, followed by remorse, apology, everything is okay, wonderful, until the next trigger. And that's, they can be trapped in that until they realize they have to address the essence of the problem, which is those psychological scars. And unfortunately, many times, those wounds are so deep that men will be afraid to address that problem unless either the significant other says, either you treat me with respect or I'm out of here, or it's mandated by the court system, which sometimes it is if there's a physical assault charge, which happens many times in cases of physical abuse. So it's not something that's permanent, because we're all pure spirit souls and we're all covered in different ways. So that reaction from abuse is also a type of karma, a type of covering, but it can be cured by proper help, by qualified counselors who can help the individual heal those scars and release those stresses from the body so that they can learn to respond from their values rather than from the triggers of the past. So it's not a permanent disability, but it's something that requires some serious attention and care. So these are symptoms that raise concern. Could someone you want to continue reading these?
You tend to give more than you receive in the relationship. You perceive that your relationship is not reciprocal.
So it's a one-sided relationship that's unhealthy.
You fear being yourself in the association of your spouse.
Because you'd be afraid that at any moment you might say or do something that's going to trigger your partner's intense anger. So literally they feel like they're constantly walking on thin ice, you say, or for non-veg, walking on eggshells.
People you love and trust advise you that your spouse is not acting in your best interest.
And sometimes this happens with couples who are just getting to know each other. Some of their friends maybe know the individual and they're trying to tell the individual that this person is not really the right person for you. They understand there's some history of abuse there. And unfortunately, sometimes couples, when they're just getting to know each other, they their vision can be clouded by the euphoria of getting to know the person, and they can overlook red flags that are waving, that this could potentially be a very dangerous relationship, even when friends are saying you're going in the wrong direction.
Your spouse consistently tells lies and is generally devious.
So that's a very concerning sign. Next are signs of definite abuse. Someone like to read these?
Your partner doesn't take responsibility and often blames.
Yeah, so the blaming thing, that's a very big red flag. If your partner's continually blaming others.
No accountability, right? It's always your fault.
You relinquish more and more of the social or spiritual standards to keep the peace in your relationship.
So abuse is not actually a relationship problem, it's a problem of control, that individual who is abusive tends to always need to feel in control, so they will control you.
Your spouse often ridicules your opinions or ideas, calls your names, or embarrasses you in public.
And that's very detrimental, because that, if someone is receiving that kind of behavior, it can gradually erode your self-esteem, even to the point that sometimes individuals in abusive relationships don't even realize they're in an abusive relationship. They start to actually believe it's their fault, which is tragic.
You're regularly subjected to unwarranted jealousy and controlling behavior.
And next.
Your partner makes excuses for his or her neglectful or hurting actions. There is inconsistency between words, example, promises, and conduct.
So again, there can be that continuous cycle abuse. There's an apology, and then it just happens again and again. One more.
You are subjected to physical, emotional, or verbal violence.
And again, so again, that's quite obvious, and it seems counterintuitive, but if there is the kind of intense emotional control and ridicule, the abused individual, even though there may be physical, emotional, or verbal abuse going on, they'll actually think it's their fault. The victim will think it's their fault, and that's tragic. So, second from the top or the bottom? The top. You relinquish more and more of the social or spiritual standards to keep the peace in your relationship. Sometimes the abusive person will not let their partner go out to see their friends or go to the temple. They always have to feel the need to be in control. So they're limiting your freedom to do what you want to do. So every time we do a seminar, we generally present this. Also, when we do premarital education, and we do it just because there's a slim chance maybe one of the individuals has been in some relationship that's been abusive, or you may know someone who is in an abusive relationship. And if you're equipped with the knowledge to know what abuse looks like, if you're a little informed, you can be able maybe to recognize that and enable you to help them to get some help that they may need to rectify that situation. So this is a bit like you get on the airplane and the stewardess comes and says, if the cabin pressure drops, the masks will drop down, put them on, blah, blah, blah. And so basically this is like that kind of message. So thank you for listening, and we hope you have enjoy the rest of your flight with the Grihastha Vision Team, and Hare Krishna.
Sorry, I had a quick question. If you don't mind.
Okay.
Just wondering if you can distinguish the difference between verbal and emotional violence. 'Cause to me, like, they might sounds like the same. I don't know.
Well, verbal is like the constant ridicule. You're unintelligent. You're stupid.
That's also emotional.
Yeah.
I think verbal is more they're just yelling and screaming at you, but emotional is they're manipulating you just to see that you're low. They lower your self-esteem, right?
But you're also doing it verbally.
For sure.
And emotional sometimes can be, I'll just neglect everything you're doing. I'll neglect what you're saying. I won't listen.
I like just ignore you. Or
Yeah.
Yeah. So it could be, yeah. All right. We are, let me just, yeah.
So now we want to look at, we talked about the different pitfalls, and now we want to look at some ways you can...
No, we're not done them.
Oh, sorry, we're going to do losing strategy. Okay, right, sorry.
So in relationships, there's times when we're in harmony, and then inevitably somebody's having a bad day, and there's some disharmony. And that happens to everybody in all relationships. Okay, you are doing it. I'll just do the, I know you start over here. Okay.
A little disharmony here.
Yeah, we get spaced out and we have disharmony. So all people and all relationships and all friendships, they have the good times and then you have some disharmony. That is life. People don't realize it, especially people get in relationships and they think, oh, okay, there's disharmony, maybe we shouldn't be together, we should, split up. So if you're in the brought up Indian, you just suffer through it and you keep on going. Western people, they go, oh, this isn't working, let's get out of here. But there's something better than both. We can repair. So all couples fight, all friends fight. The happy friendships and the happy couples, they know how to repair. They repair well and they repair quickly. That's the only difference. We're all fighting.
And disharmony is normal, and disharmony is even, I won't say disharmony, but you'll even see there's conflict and challenges in the spiritual realm. You're all familiar with the month of Damodar? Anyone not familiar with the month of Damodar? We celebrate the pastime of Krishna and Yasoda, where there were so many problems with Krishna causing problems, breaking the yogurt pots. And so we have a 1-month festival celebrating this pastime of Krishna and Mother Yasoda's conflict. So in the spiritual realm, there's even a kind of conflict which is very different than the spiritual world. So here it's described harmony, disharmony, and repair. And Srila Prabhupada one time he said, it's okay to fight as long as you realize the goal is to serve Krishna. But he said there should be no discord. And I thought that was very interesting. He said you can have arguments, you can have differences of opinion that you have to hash out, but he said there should be no discord. And I first read that, well, discord to me had the same connotation as like a fight. So I looked it up in the dictionary, and discord, in some definitions, it does imply the same thing as like a conflict. Another definition of discord has to do with the realm of music, and discord in the realm of music means if there's 2 instruments or 2 notes that are played that are out of tune. It doesn't sound very good. If the instruments are not tuned together, you have disharmony. And when I read that musical definition, it immediately reminded me how Prabhupada, he described once, in the spiritual world, all talking is singing. He said, all talking is singing, all walking is dancing. And so even in the spiritual realm, you'll read about, there's pastimes where Radha and Krishna are having these arguments, but actually it's very sweet. It's like this transcendental mellow, very different than the material. And so that's there in the spiritual world, but it's centered around Krishna, so it becomes very pleasing and pleasurable. It's like a type of transcendental drama, and it's pleasurable. But in the material world, it becomes, when we forget that Krishna is the center and we're thinking of our selfish interests, we are out of tune, and then the music does not sound very sweet. So the key, as Uttama is saying, how to repair. So before we look at how to repair, we're going to look at some things that cause the discord and disharmony, which are called 5 losing strategies.
are in your handout.
So the first is the need to be right. And some situations there is a definite right and a wrong, or definite kind of a hard decision. In close relationships, in many kinds of different challenges and situations where you have to make a decision or resolve an argument, it may not necessarily be black and white. So it's important to realize that in certain situations, you have to put aside the need to be right and ask yourself, would I rather be right or would I rather be in a relationship? That's a serious question. Do we have the mic?
We were both just talking about how you really resonate with wanting to be right, but then again, we were talking about like how when you have experiences of being gaslit, where you've been in a situation where your reality that you suffered at someone else's hand was completely denied, and like you were gaslit. So then it's like being right becomes kind of like a survivor response.
Survival instinct, yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, because you've been gaslit. Gaslit means someone's very manipulative and getting their way, and to be on the other end of that's very painful and bewildering and frustrating. And when you get out of that can be a bit of a trigger for you. When you're in a situation, you're going to be reminded of that, and you're going to feel the survival need going to kick in, that you want to protect yourself. And that's why it's important to be able to recover from that kind of abuse that you've experienced in those situations, so that you can learn to discern, okay, am I actually in a situation which is safe, and I can trust that this dialogue, it's going to be in both our interests. And that can take some time to get that confidence back, and sometimes it may need some help from the outside to be able to process that past so you don't get triggered by it.
So in general, you see people arguing all the time on, no, it happened this way, no, it was that way, this way, that way. But is it a big deal? So the point is it so important to be right, or can we, give it up a little bit? I was just don't carry on then.
No, okay, so carry on. The next one is being controlling. And so being controlling means being excessively inclined to put pressure on your partner or your friend to get things your way. Know anything about that? Controlling. And it's very counterproductive to relationships, because we want relationships of bhakti. And bhakti is based on a voluntary offering of service from our hearts and from our soul. And similarly, we're looking to have relationships of bhakti and relationship with Krishna. So those relationships, that exchange of service and affection, it has to be voluntary. It has to come from our own desire, out of our own will, not by control. If there's control, it's not love. Love is not control.
And so controlling at its worst heads to abuse. And many people are just simply normal old controlling as a losing strategy.
The next losing strategy is unbridled self-expression. And so that comes from a sense of entitlement. Again, can come from that unhealthy self-esteem, that's likely how you saw some primary caregiver behave, and you tend to emulate behavior. And you're just actually repeating another negative pattern out of a type of conditioning. And unbridled self-expression, it's just like being a fire-breathing dragon. It does not invoke love. It invokes fear and control, which again can border on the realm of abuse, which is, again, the antithesis of Vaishnavism.
Some people are unbridled self-expression. They just need to get it all out. I have to be authentic. You need to hear my feelings, and you just go on and on and on. Certain genders are pretty good at that.
Next is retaliation. So your partner may have hurt you in some way, and you think, well, they hurt me, so therefore I'm going to hurt them.
So they know how it feels.
Yeah. So tit for tat. I mean, you're not playing tennis, you're not playing volleyball. You're trying to have a relationship that's pleasing to Krishna. And as we read that quote earlier, like even if your finger hurts, Krishna feels the pain. So in a relationship, if you're trying to hurt each other, how does Krishna feel? You can ask yourself that. How does Krishna feel that we're trying to hurt each other? Probably not very pleasing. Next is withdrawal, and that's very unproductive because you cannot solve anything when you withdraw. So withdrawal, it can be physical, verbal, or psychological. Men tend to do a lot of withdrawing, although our group there was a lot of ladies who admitted that they withdraw. There is one dynamic. It's time to talk about, or should I talk about it when we do repairs? Talk about it now?
Yeah.
Pursue withdrawal. There's one psychological difference between male and females. Women tend to be more emotional, although men are also emotional. Men tend to be more analytical, problem-solving oriented, although women are also analytical, but men more so, women less so. And often ladies have a very strong need to feel understood. It tends to make them feel protected and secure when they have someone in their life they can talk to and express what they're feeling in their life. The challenge is sometimes we men, when we hear that our significant other is expressing something to us and they're looking to be understood, we tend to interpret that as some kind of problem we can solve. Your spouse might say, I had a terrible day at the office today. All these machines broke down. I couldn't get anyone to fix it. It just was driving me crazy. I just was so stressed. And you might say, okay, well, I know how to fix that. I'll call the manager.
Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?
Yeah, why don't you do this and why don't you do that? And then the man will see that his wife looks a little frustrated. And the men get a little puzzled. Well, I'm trying to solve your problem. And she might say something like, well, you don't understand. And he might say, well, I just heard you say what the problem is, and I know how to fix that, and I can fix that for you. And she'll say, no, you don't understand. And the man gets completely bewildered. And so that happens, tends to be a repetitive problem in relationships, that the woman's trying to get some empathy, and the man's interpreting it as a problem he can fix. He tries to solve the problem, she gets frustrated. He gets bewildered seeing her frustrated. And for men, that's extremely painful because for men, it's very important. We understand this from the scriptures, that men, they like to feel like they're the protector of their wives, being the knight in shining armor and saving them from the dragons. And so that's what we're trying to do when we hear you say your problems. And then when we see you we see frustration in your eyes, it makes us become bewildered. So we tend to withdraw, and then the lady will start to say, well, you never talk to me. And the man says, well, every time I do, it's a disaster, so why should I try? And they withdraw more and more, stop talking to their spouses, and what that triggers in women. So the women are triggering inadvertently, unknowingly, a fear of inadequacy in the men, because they're feeling inadequate because they're not making you happy. And when the men start to withdraw, that triggers in the woman a fear of isolation, and that's one of the biggest fears for women, is the fear of isolation, that their significant other is backing away. And as he backs away, they pursue more. You have to talk to me. Why don't you talk to me? And the man withdraws more and more. That pattern, it's referred to in psychology as pursuit withdrawal. The woman pursues for connection through empathy. The man doesn't understand, gives a solution, doesn't work. He withdraws, she pursues, he withdraws. That dynamic, if you don't straighten that out, either you will live miserably ever after, or you'll end up getting divorced, unless you break that cycle. And you can break that cycle one of two ways. Even if the man just understands, it's not actually a problem, she just wants some empathy. Oh, I hear you had a real tough day at work today. Geez, that must have been a real trial for you. And she'll go, yeah, you acknowledged her feeling. By helping her understand and process her feelings, she feels relaxed, actually.
And then you really are our knight in shining armor.
So if we can realize that, and also from the woman's side, like one lady once said to us, my husband never talks to me. So I asked, how long have you been married? She said, 25 years. I said, he's never talked to you in 25 years? She said, no. So what I told her, when I hear especially ladies say, you never or you always, it's masking some kind of pain inside. You're not really saying what you're feeling. You're using that word to mask your pain. And I said, what I'm hearing behind your words is it's very painful for you when he doesn't talk to you. She said, yeah. And so I said, if you just can tell him how meaningful it is to you when he does listen to you and empathize with your feelings, that it makes you feel loved, protected, secure, whatever, he'll get that. Because then he sees, oh, here's how I can be successful. I can be successful if I just repeat that, oh, you're having a tough day. Huh? Wow, that's easy.
Especially when you only need 15 minutes of listening, not 2 hours.
So that understanding that is for a lot of couples realizing they can have a breakthrough because they just break that pattern. Just understand that your wife just needs some empathy, some understanding, a little hug or a little pat on the shoulder. Sometimes that's all I'm looking for. And even myself to this day, sometimes she might be working on the computer and she's kind of grumbling. And I can't tell if she's asking me a question. I'll say, Uttama, are you just having a rough time there, or do you want me to fix your computer? I won't know. So I'll ask her, do you want some empathy, or do you want me to fix this for you? I'll just come out and ask. It simplifies things. Vishaka's got a question? Isolation, like if you're... Be alone. Yeah. You might be living with your significant other, your husband, but if he's never talking to you, you can feel alone, even though he's close to you. So important to straighten that one out if that's occurring in your relationship. Goodness.
So we have these losing strategies here, and I want you to think. Usually we're usually pretty good at 2 of these. Any takers for needing to be right? How about controlling? Unbridled self-expression? Okay. Retaliation? Okay, a few of those. Withdrawal? Okay, see? Yeah. All right. So,
is there another mic or batteries that could get put here? Is there another mic or batteries? The red light's going on in this one.
So, this is for well, let me see. All right. Just jot down quickly a little list of specific people that you get into unhealthy relationship patterns with. Just jot down a few names quickly. No. She has unbridled self-expression. We don't let her share. So a few people that you sometimes get into unhealthy relationship patterns with. Just jot down a few names.
Oh, thank you.
So it might be your partner, children, friends, co-workers, colleagues. You could even do, a few in each category if you want. Doesn't have to be real recent. It can be in the past. It doesn't have to be recent. Okay. All right. So Now, some of the places or times when you're most likely to use your unhealthy pattern that you've identified from the losing strategies and the 4 quadrants. So you think you want to see you've got your 5 losing strategies there, controlling, being right, unbridled self-expression, withdrawal, retaliation, and then you had your quadrants that you go to. So you want to see, is there certain times when you tend to go to those? Before dinner, after you come home for a long day at work, whenever. Some of the places, times when you're most likely to use your unhealthy patterns that you've identified. And just write it down and see where those patterns just show up. So we're going to give you a break now until 4 o'clock, 15-minute break, and we'll see you back at 4. So a big part of taking responsibility for our losing strategies and getting to the center of health on the relationship grid is our responsibility. And as I was describing how there's a part of us that tends to go to these losing strategies and having the low self-esteem or a not healthy place in the boundaries. And that's the part of us that tends to go to those coping strategies of the adaptive child. So when we get triggered and we feel upset, we can take the break and we can go somewhere a little bit by ourselves. And it can be really helpful at that time to have a bit of a relationship with that adaptive child part of you, so that you can calm and manage that adaptive child, because that is the part of you that's getting all upset and getting angry and acting out. So the adaptive child part of us, if we can get to know a little bit about why it does what it does, the benefits it has given us, because there is benefits. We're here, and we got through life, and we coped. And how we are now there to soothe and take care of that part of us. Because there's nobody else that's going to do it. That's our responsibility. So sometimes they call it reparenting. Just going in there and being the wise adult for our maladaptive strategies. So a good way to get to know your adaptive child, and sometimes if we would do like a longer 2 or 3 day boot camp seminar, we would spend an hour and have everybody write a letter to their adaptive child. Right now what I'm going to do is just tell you how to do it, and if you choose, you can do one yourself sometime when you have an hour. You do want to try to spend about an hour with it, because you want to really get to know yourself. So the first thing this is in your handout, so you'll have it with you. You want to thank your adaptive child, that part of you, for what it offered you. You helped me get through those tough times. I was able to look after my little sister when my parents were like having that huge fight in the or whatever. You kept me sane because you were able to like go in and manage things or whatever. So here's what you did. The second thing is, here's the gifts that you've given me. Oh, I'm very creative now. I've learned how to do all kinds of skills that I wouldn't have maybe known. I have sensitivity, I have standards, I have, a drive to make things happen, even if we're being a little controlling with it, but we have the drive. So the good things. And then, but here's what it's cost me. It's cost me to be too controlling, my anger comes out too fast, I'm hard on myself, I have low self-esteem, whatever. This is what it's cost me. And here's what it's taught me. It's taught me maybe how to take responsibility, but I should do it in a different way, whatever it is for your particular circumstances. And at first, these things aren't going to come to you, but when you take like about an hour to write it, sometimes a good way to write is just to put your pencil on the paper and just keep writing whatever comes in your head. No one else is going to read it, and then later on, if you want to make sense of it, you just cross out the stuff. But it just keeps your thoughts flowing. And then the last one is, I'm here now, the wise higher self, and I can take care of both of us. So from now on, it's going to look like. In other words, I'm going to run the show. We're not doing it your way anymore. So one thing about dealing with your adaptive child, like when you are in that triggered space and you're trying to soothe your adaptive child, we need to be very nice to it and kind, because it was wise then, it's just not working now. So getting mad at it doesn't work. However, we do have to be firm that you just sit in the back seat now. It's okay, I'll do the driving. You don't need to drive. I'll drive. So you're not dealing with my husband. I'm going to. Because it doesn't go good when you deal with my husband. So like that. So we want to be kind to it, but firm. So once you've established that relationship with, that maladaptive tendencies and behaviors, then when we're all upset about something, and it's, Mataji was saying, you're just talking about it's ruminating. Instead, you take your breath and you sit that child in your lap, and it's okay. I can take charge. I know, what are you upset about? What do you need? Here's what we're going to do, right? And so that way you can get your better strategies. Now, it might sound, psychotherapy couch, airy-fairy, but it really does work. It's one of the best ways to get rid of your angry moods, your just your maladaptive strategies, because we have to handle that. There's nobody else is going to do that for us. So when we are able to make that letter, it makes it much easier and much quicker. So I know I have, many clients, they tried this and right away they say, yep, I just tell my husband I need a little break, I go off, give a little talk to my kid, and then I see what's going on. I figure, okay, it was just that and this. You can figure it out more, what's going on in your head. And then you can go back and come in your higher self. So that's just, a little strategy that you can use to get a hold of our triggers. All right. So now we're going to start with the repair process. We were talking about the 5 losing strategies, our automatic defenses, our triggers, and all the things that we should not be doing. And here's how to get to the places where you can do what we need to be doing. So we'll start with the repair process.
Yeah, and this is important. Even if you just realize, I need to make a repair, that's a huge breakthrough. Because if we don't realize we've gone off track, if we don't realize we're in the lower modes of material nature, if we continue the same patterns of behavior that don't work, that's what conditional life is all about. You're stuck in that cycle that's not progressing. So at least if you realize I need to make a repair, you're moving in the right direction. And that's praiseworthy. So one very important way to repair situations is to take a time out. And as we were describing in that hand model of the brain and how physiologically what happens when you get escalated, the cortisol and adrenaline is produced, and how it takes at least minimum 20 minutes for that to get filtered out of your system. So especially if you are in any kind of a long-term relationship, it's very beneficial if you can have a strategy with your significant other, how you're going to deal in these situations where one or both of you get escalated. And that's, you can agree that you need to take that time out to just filter that cortisol and adrenaline out of your system. So in those situations, it's important to let your partner know, make an explanation what's happening. Don't just walk out on them and leave them in the blue, hanging there. They're going to get very worried what's going on. But let them know you feel a little escalated and you need to take a time out. And also it's very important, especially for men, to let your wife or partner know that you need to take that time out and make a promise that, I really care about you, I love you, I want to work this out, but I need such and such a time, at least 20 minutes, to just kind of resettle myself, and I will come back and work this out. And couples, sometimes they'll make some little signal that they need a timeout. I think that's the next one. Yes, say timeout, or use it. You can do a timeout signal, or you can do the flip lid signal. They'll know what you mean. So if you have that agreement, your partner will be confident. Okay, they're just a little escalated. It's a normal physiological thing. It happens to everyone. They're going to come back when they can be the best they can be, rather than be unhinged.
So very often it's good to come up with these strategies ahead of time, because there are times when if you open your mouth at all, it's not going to be good. So if you've already had the understanding that when either one of us does this, I will be back, and I care, and it's not that I'm just running out. So you've already had this conversation. So it can also be useful in your Bhakti Academy. You know, you got your men's ashram, you got your girls' ashram. You know, you can have these, you know, negative interactions. So if you've already talked, you know, when it gets negative, I'm going to give the time out, and we are going to come back and we're going to resolve it. We're not just dumping it.
And these strategies are actually very practical ways you can implement the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, which is to control the lower self with the higher self. Very practical way, taking a time out. You're letting that lower self kind of settle down so your higher self can connect with your heart, so you can get some real intelligence. And also Bhagavad Gita is teaching us how to come to the mode of goodness, and it's teaching us how to understand what different activities and states of consciousness look like in different modes. And if we just consider what we were discussing the last few hours, we can see how when we're in our lower self, when we're controlled by that amygdala, we're pretty much in the modes of ignorance and passion. And by practicing these different behaviors which can help us emotionally regulate, that's bringing us to the mode of goodness, which Prabhu describes in the 14th chapter, that how by practice you can develop the mode of goodness. So this is actually an important part of your spiritual life, your spiritual practice, the process of anartha nivritti, to help you advance in Krishna consciousness. So indirectly, the challenges and conflicts you have in your life and your relationships are helping you to advance, because they're helping you to develop the ability to control your mind. So it's a victory. And also important, that last point here, when either partner calls a timeout, the interaction comes to an immediate stop. Because sometimes one partner will be the more volatile kind, and they'll say, no, we just have to work this out right now. We can't let a minute pass by. We have to talk about it right this minute. Don't go away. I want to talk to you now. It won't work. It will not work, because the partner that's escalated, they will not be able to think or speak rationally with kindness and compassion, which they actually want to do and will not be able to do until they can filter that adrenaline out of their system. Can I do this one? You can do the next one.
So we were saying that it takes at least 20 minutes. So if you're too upset to talk about it, you have the pre-made plan that, you know, in at least in no less than 20 minutes, I can come back and do it. Some people already know 20 minutes is never going to do it for them. Either way, we all have these lovely little phone things. If you're not in your higher self in 20 minutes, don't come back. Just, you know, give it, okay, let's check in a couple of hours, or maybe half a day, maybe even a whole day, maybe even overnight. They have this crazy saying, never go to bed without resolving an argument. I mean, if you're dead tired and you're both upset, you're going to stay up all night and do what? You know, it's like, I don't know who invented that one. It's you know, get a good sleep and talk nicely to each other in the morning. So the point is, though, that we have to be responsible, because this is called responsible distance taking. Otherwise, it would be withdrawal. You know, I'm just withdrawing and I'm out of here. So we do have to have responsible distance taking, and we don't want to come back if we're not ready. And we should honor that the other person wants to be the best person that they can before they come back, not to be judging them. We want to be thinking that they're looking out for themselves so they can come and talk to me in the best way that they can, and they're trying to be at their best, and I need to honor that. You had a question?
I don't know how common that is in Indian culture, but in Western culture, couples take breaks. What do you think about taking like a break? Like, oh, we'll take like a week or something. That's because we keep fighting. Let's take a break. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that they haven't worked out any strategies for repair. So we're going to go, it could take a week. However, another one of the points is you need to at least be able to come back and be civil, like be able to sit down and have dinner together. You might take a break for talking about it, but you need to get yourself back where you can be hospitable with each other.
I think his question was about what they call sometimes controlled separation.
Are you? No, you're just talking about live separately for a break, for a week, or just don't talk about it for a week? What's your question?
Just not interact for like a week.
They live in the same house, but they just don't interact at all.
You go stay with somebody else or something.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I would say that those people probably don't have a lot of other skills to get there any faster. And if that's the best you can do, it's better than, killing each other, talking nasty and having a whole disruptions. It's possible if they're agreeing to come back. Right? So, in some circumstances, it can work. It's just that if every other week you're off somewhere, you obviously need some other strategies. It is good, though, to not continue on with really negative interactions. It is good to take a break from them. So in that sense, yeah.
A little footnote there, Uttama mentioned that if you're not ready to come back, you can send your partner a text message. Just let them know you need more time. One thing you never want to try to do is solve some disagreement by texting or even email. There was some research done that showed that the percentage of possibility of success in solving arguments by text messages was 0%. Because you cannot really express emotion. There's no body language, no intonation, so you're really doing a lot of guessing at what the words actually mean, because a lot of communication is actually bodily expression and movements and facial expression, so that's important to know. You can't solve things by texting. You need to be personal. Yeah, and so the last point there is to come back when you're truly ready to make peace. And one Mataji here was saying that her problem was that when she took the time out, she's just thinking, stewing in her head about the problem, and then she comes back and she's still escalated and nothing works. So you have to actually take a time out, actually calm down, be settled, and then come back with an open mind that you're actually willing to listen to each other.
And then when you reconnect after a time out, you actually might want to take a 24-hour moratorium on discussing the subject that triggered it. So you can just get yourselves to a state where you can interact nicely with each other, but you're not quite ready to discuss the problem yet. You do want to discuss the problem, but maybe after 24 hours. And I know we were doing the seminar in New York, and one of the couples said to me, I don't know if you heard, they said, oh, that would make all the difference. Because we can be nice to each other, but we're still, the argument still kind of brewing inside. So knowing that we don't have to discuss it right away, but we could take, wait till the next day to discuss it. But still, you can get on with your day. You can like eat dinner together and be pleasant with each other, and you're past your triggers. So that's all that for this.
Yep.
Any questions on time outs?
So when we're back after timeout and we are now trying to explain each other, hear each other's side, and usually in my experience it's always like nice and positive and it brings us back stronger.
So is what brings you back?
Like this, the conversation after timeout, this brings us stronger. Okay, I understand. What were you thinking? Okay, and then everything is okay. Sometimes I've noticed just since last few months, I've noticed within my own nature that I know that my partner likes me, loves me, and I also have conviction. He also knows that I like him and I love him. If we are going for a timeout, then sometimes when I don't want to maybe discuss too much about that issue. And that's not because I'm avoiding or running away from something, but it's mainly because maybe laundry is waiting or maybe services are waiting. And I know that, maybe he's just trying to make sure that I'm not hurt and I'm not hurt and everything is okay. But I don't want to go through that, 1-2 hours of conversation. So what is wrong with me here?
Nothing's wrong with you. You're smart.
Okay.
And you might want to reserve half an hour every Thursday night just to look back at the week and say, okay, is there anything else that we don't quite have, in agreement with this, or something we need to tweak, or how's it sitting on you and for you, and do we need to change anything in this? Because we seem to have a little, discord over this topic, so what do you need for this and what do I need? And you could actually work it out at a different time. And some couples actually do that. They just take half an hour. We're only taking half an hour, and we're going to go through something that wasn't so positive in the week before. And that's just what you do in that time. But you're already going in there calm, and so you can discuss each other's thing. And then, because otherwise, okay, you're back to being nice to each other, but the issue maybe isn't solved, and so it's going to pop up a few months later again, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you want to prevent.
One follow-up question. Sorry, it's not a follow-up, but just another question. I forgot. I forgot. This is just in general for all relationships that I have, whether with my husband or with BA or any devotee. It's very easy to get complacent. You're very inspired and you're following all this that that you have taught us in premarital counseling too, or in our ashram leader training, whatever. But after some time, you become complacent, or you start taking the other person for granted. So how can I not do that? How can I just keep that spark alive, and at the same time there is always excitement in that relationship?
By not taking things for granted, by verbally expressing appreciation.
Okay.
Because when we become complacent, gradually we may stop to notice the things that our spouse is doing for us, and vice versa. And we may start to notice more the things that irritate us or the things that they're not doing, and you can develop a negative bias if you don't cultivate the positive bias. And there was some interesting research on couples, and it showed that sometimes couples who have disharmonious relationships compared to couples who have harmonious relationships, they were both doing the same things for each other, the same kind of behavior, same patterns, but somehow the couples in successful relationships, they were noticing the good things the other partner was doing, and they were occasionally expressing appreciation. Whereas the couples in stressed relationships, unhappy relationships, the same service was being rendered back and forth. They very rarely expressed appreciation, and they didn't even notice the good things that were going on. So it is important to be conscious. We're trying to become Krishna conscious. And a part of Krishna consciousness is probably that attention to detail. And in our relationships also we should be attentive to those kind of details, the things that are, be appreciative of Krishna has given me this partner, or this friend, they're doing all these wonderful things for me, to be aware of those things. And to be aware of the things that Krishna has given us.
Thank you.
So what do we do if we take responsible distancing, but even after returning back, the other person starts from the same point? So this so happened with me. My parents, they bring all the past things that I have done wrong in the same conversation. And despite taking a responsible distance, while coming back to the same topic, the conversation starts from same point. In that moment, what should we do?
Well, it's a little tricky because your parents haven't learned good conflict resolution strategies. So when you are trying to resolve some point of dissension, you only want to talk about the point happening, not everything else. Because you can't solve everything all at once. You can only solve the one. So maybe you could say, oh, can we just work only on this one? And we'll talk about the others another time, even though you never will, but whatever. And so it is actually very important when you are, having a repair conversation that we don't bring in everything else. They call that kitchen sinking, bring everything from the kitchen sink into the relationship. So it's ineffective. It's another ineffective strategy. We want to avoid that. So when... Is this me?
Yeah, and then another very important point in the repair process. Microphone help. Very important to repair things, to get in your higher self. Remember love, get centered in your wise adult self, remembering that the person you're speaking to is someone that you care about, and that the reason why you're speaking is to make things better. Is what you're saying, is it going to be beneficial? That's described as speech in the mode of goodness. So you want to speak, make sure you're speaking in a way that's going to be beneficial to both parties, and you want to make sure you're coming from your higher self, that you're actually connected with your heart, not just being reactive. That's small detail, but extremely important, that you want to be situated in yourself.
Higher self, yeah.
Higher self, yeah.
Because very often you come back with your losing strategies. Right? You're coming to control it, to be right, to get it the way you want it. That's not going to make repair. And I've said it before, but it's worth saying again. When we are in our lower adaptive child state, we don't care about relationships. We just want to be right and get what we want. So it's not going to work. You cannot repair when you're there. You can't hear what they want to say, and you're not interested, and you're not interested in listening to them.
And if you can just reflect for a moment on Srila Prabhupada, who was an individual who was completely fixed in his higher self, his devotion to Krishna, and just see how influential Prabhupada was at changing people's way of thinking and behavior. So many Western people became devotees, gave up a completely different lifestyle, just influenced by his sense of concern and compassion. You could actually feel that, and you would change. So many Westerners changed, and also so many Indians who came to America, a lot of them to forget their culture and to adopt the Western culture. Prabhupada has gotten them also to realize the value of their own culture and to re-embrace it. So that's the power of someone who's actually situated in their pure self. It's very extremely powerful and pure and very attractive. And we can't imitate Prabhupada, but we can follow in his footsteps. And try to develop that sense of compassionate self towards ourselves and towards others. And that way we can have very healthy relationships and healthy communities.
We are going to teach you one strategy for repair. And you would use this when something is very important to you and you need the other person to really understand it. So the first thing is, as I was saying before, that we always want to make a contract with the partner to do the process. We don't just come and start, here's what I need, give it to me right now. So we have to, is this a good time? You know, are you able to hear me right now? So in order to do a feedback wheel, we need to be in our higher self and the other person needs to be in their higher self. And it's very helpful to say, do you have like 15 minutes? I can express something important for me. A feedback wheel doesn't take very long. And that can be really stress relieving to find out that, oh, I only have to listen for like 10 minutes. I don't have to sit here for 2 hours and hear everything and everything, right? So feedback wheels are great because they're concise when you really need to say something. And it is important in relationships when something is really bothering you that for the sake of the relationship, we can think, why is it bothering me? What do I need? And express it. So a feedback wheel is is there? Oh yeah.
At one point here, to remember love, sometimes people have a hard time with, sometimes individuals have a hard time with the word love that has different conceptions to different people. But love has a very broad spectrum of meanings. And one of the most important aspects of love is compassion. Compassion, care for others and care for yourself. And it's important to be able to come from that platform of compassion and care and love when you are engaging in these kind of conversations. Because then you're coming from your heart. And when you can come from your heart, you're very likely to be able to speak to the heart of your significant other or your friend, as opposed to if you're coming from your reactive side, from your adaptive child, you're likely to trigger their lower self, both of which are going to be disconnected from the heart. So you want to really be coming from a good spot when you bring that up.
And so when you want to say something, it's really good to do it in this format with the 4 steps of the feedback wheel. So the 4 steps are, the first one is, this is what happened, this is what I saw or what I heard. It's just the facts, okay? So, and we only want to say it in no more than 2 sentences. Has to be really succinct, not going on and on and on and on. What I saw, what I made up about it. Now this is the crucial point, because a lot of quarrels, or like if he comes home like 3 hours late and doesn't tell me, what am I making up? I'm making up. He doesn't care. He has no respect. Okay, I don't know what happened, but I've made up that he doesn't care, right? So what I made up about it. Then step 3 is how I feel about it. What I made up about it was you don't care, and that makes me feel unloved, unrespected, and angry, right? And what I need. Okay, so we have these 4 steps here.
Just one small, very important point. Here it said that what I made up about it, or you can also say the story I told myself. And why that is very important, because usually people say, well, I felt that you didn't care about me when that happened. That's like a judgment. I felt that you didn't care about me when you were late. And when you say something that is perceived as a judgment, the automatic response is going to be defensiveness. Guaranteed. If you become judgmental, it's going to trigger defense. But if you can say, that was the story I told myself, and that's what it made me feel, you get your message across in a way that's not going to make the person feel defensive, because they're seeing that that's what occurred, that's what they thought about it, and that's what they felt. So you can listen to that a lot easier than if it comes across as a judgment. And that can make a huge difference in the transmission of the message that you're trying to get to your partner.
And then that's the 4 steps, so you want to use it. So here's an example. Oh, forgot about this one. Once you've said, and this is what I need, you've done your part. It's a request. You have to let go of the outcome. That's the hard part. But it doesn't work. Otherwise, it's just a manipulation strategy. All right, so no more than 2 sentences for each step. And here's an example. So what happened? Yesterday evening when you came home, you threw your keys on the table harder than usual and didn't greet me. What I made up about it, so, I'm going to make up something about that. I have no idea why, right? What I made up about it was that you were frustrated about something from work and took it out at home, which makes me think that I might be part of the problem. Okay. How it made me feel? I felt hurt, lonely, and scared. Some guy's coming in, not talking to you, throwing it on you. You don't know what's going to happen the rest of the night, right? Scared. So what I need. I would like if we could take a few minutes to connect after you come home. Even if it's just a quick check-in to say, hi, give me a hug and share how your day was. Right? Instead of coming in, not saying something and throwing the keys on the floor. Okay. So, now the hard part. The listener. It's way harder to listen than to say something. They have this saying, God gave us 2 ears because we're supposed to hear more and talk less, right? So the listener role is always quite hard. So it's really helpful when you've been asked, is this a good time? I need to share something with you. And you've agreed, immediately you want to put on your non-defensive hat, and I'm just listening. It's not about me. It's about what the other person is requesting. I don't have to get all defensive that, it's all about me. It's more likely something to do with what they're feeling, and that's how they perceived it. So we want to listen just to understand how the other person's feeling, not to get defensive and talk all about ourselves. Listening means we don't talk about ourselves at all. We just listen. So we want to repeat back what we heard so that they know that we heard. And then acknowledge what you can. So as much of it that you can acknowledge, yeah, I can be like that sometimes. I can see why you'd think that. Yeah, I kind of do that. And sure, I could do this and this. You want to acknowledge whatever you can. Give as much as you can. So give what you can in response to their request. Because your partner or your friend is asking because they're in distress and they need something. And hey, we can help out and give it to them. This isn't like, we're not making a business deal. It's a unilateral gesture of help. They're asking, and I'm going to see what I can do. That's simple. So here's what the listener would say. So they're having the right intent, okay? To understand, not to find out where you can disagree with. Yeah, but I didn't really do it like that. And that's not going to help the person speaking. So you want to repeat it back. When I came home and didn't greet you, then threw my keys on the table, you were hurt that I took out my work frustration on you and scared that I might blame you for being the cause and not talk to you. So he kind of figured out what she was saying, even though, didn't quite say it. Acknowledge. I understand that could make you feel unjustly criticized and worried that I might be angry all night and not connect with you. So then what can you give? I can be more conscious to take a breath before I come in the door, mentally leave my work outside. So he's giving, you know. And then come in and greet you and ask how you are and share a bit about my day. So he just did. So he's given what he can. Now I'm sure she's feeling, you know, pretty good about that and heard. Took 15 minutes, you can go on nicely with your night, right? Otherwise, you know, you've got this stressful interaction, you know, throwing the keys on, everybody's on edge. You know, it wasn't going to be a very pleasant night. But she took responsibility to say, hey, you know, I'm worried about this, not working. Said it plain, what she made up about it, and then he was as giving as he could be. So, part of relationships is we want to help the other person as much as we can. And if the request is unreasonable, that's different. It is a request, it isn't a demand. So one of my teachers, he gives the example that, okay, he came home late, and the wife says, okay, when you came home 3 hours late for work, and we were all sitting there, you know, the boys and I, and you just came in, no apology, you just expect us to wait for you forever. You know, the story I made up is you're just selfish, you know, inconsiderate, you don't care about us, and, you know, you're back in your, you know, you need counseling. And so she said, what I need from you is to call before you come home, apologize to the boys for keeping them waiting, and get back into counseling. So he says, what I say is, I really understand that being late was neglectful and I wasn't considerate of you. And yes, I do this often, and I'm trying hard, and I will try harder, and I will go and apologize to the boys. I'll make sure I call if I'm going to be late again. Didn't say a word about the counseling. Because you don't want to say what you're not going to give. You want to just focus on what you are giving. And he's understanding that she's just gone a little overboard on that. But I'm not going to make a deal of it. I get it, you know? And so, okay. And she's forgotten about it already because she got what she really needed anyway. So that's what it means when you say give what you can, you know? So we do want to honestly give what we can. All right.
So this wheel, it's in your handout. If you like, you can cut it out and paste it on your fridge. And then if you ever want to bring something up to your spouse, you just take it off the fridge. You got it right there. A format that makes it constructive in how to deal with these kinds of interactions. It makes it so much easier if you have a little guideline.
Is there a reason why it's a wheel? Because usually it means like it starts over again, no? Or why is it a wheel?
Nothing specific, no, just...
I'm not sure. I guess it just makes a good visual. I don't know. I guess they could have done it horizontal. It was originally by some lady named Janet Hurley, and then somebody else named Terry Real has made it quite famous because he's got a lot of internet presence. So when you take a concept from somebody, usually try to honor them and keep it the way they made it. So have to ask her. Not exactly sure.
Having these kind of structures to deal with challenges, it's extremely beneficial to have a guidebook or rules. Like a lot of people here probably play cricket. So if some Westerners who never played cricket before, if you gave them the wickets all taken apart and the bat and the ball, and it wouldn't have a clue what to do with it. But you have rules. This is how you set the wicket up. This is where you put it. The guy pitches it so many feet away. This is how he throws it. This is how you score. If there's rules, you know how to play the game, and it goes pretty smooth. And the rules help resolve, disputes in a game. So it's the same thing with relationships. If we have some guidelines, some rules, it makes it so much easier. It makes it. We were talking about this with One Down and. Waldorf. That if we have those kind of structures, it gives us the confidence, okay, I can bring up something that I need or I'm feeling in a way that I'm confident it's going to be constructive and non-confrontational. And it gives them the courage to kind of come out of their shells. So it's good for them, and also it's good for the more boundaryless because it kind of helps them keep a little more contained by they see, well, I have to say this in a way that I'm not blaming. They're just saying that, well, I made up the story about that. And that was the story, and then what I need and what I felt. Makes it much more constructive.
Question?
Hare Krishna. So yes, that is correct. Having rules can definitely help, but I'm only trying to think of like how we naturally handle our relationships. It's more organic. I rather say it's reactive, and it's not entirely worked in all situations. And it seems like
you almost said organic.
Yes, but when I'm trying
reactive is not organic; it's inorganic.
It is not. But what I'm trying to get to is following such methodologies. Does it not make it feel like very mechanical, and that it doesn't have a certain beauty to it? I am not sure. I've never followed such proper approaches.
It feels mechanical at first, but when you see how it works, you change your mind. Because was the other working? It felt natural, but it wasn't really working.
Like rolling chapatis, you probably learned how to roll chapatis probably when you were 3 years old. Probably your grandmother had you rolling chapatis or something. For a Westerner, starts rolling chapatis, the first few look like Australia, Brazil, all these bizarre shapes. But you practice, and then all of a sudden it becomes more natural. So it's like that with resolving conflicts and challenges by a format. It's going to seem a little contrived at first, it's going to seem a little awkward, a little misshapen, but it becomes natural after you practice it, especially when you begin to experience how much easier it goes in coming to getting a good resolution.
Anybody want to try one?
I just have one more question.
You got one more question? Okay.
So if they are offering to give something in return to our feedback, and if they don't honor that after a while, what do you do?
So they're always refusing?
Not always. They'll do for some time and then they forget what they offered, and then they just go back to the same thing.
Very good question. So they've agreed. Then you want to ask them, how can I help you be successful on keeping to do this? You have to help them help you.
You can say,
they're not going to be able to do it. They haven't been doing it all along. They're willing to try, but it's not their habit and they don't know how.
You could phrase it like, what can I do for you that would make it easier for you to give me what I need? What would it make it, what can I do for you? So it becomes reciprocal. Sometimes that can work.
And so after they've agreed, because if you're always on their case, it's not going to help. Any little move they make towards doing it right was, oh, thanks, remember to do that. Do you need any help with getting the rest of it done? Because we can blow it, you know, expecting perfection right away. They've already had the losing behavior for a long time. So we request, and then we help them. They've agreed they're going to try, and they've agreed they want to do it. So you help them help you, because they probably don't quite know how.
You have no idea how patient Srila Prabhupada was with the first devotees who joined Krishna Consciousness Movement. No idea. 26th Avenue, Prabhupada, he's the founder Acharya of ISKCON. 26th Avenue, Prabhupada was waiting in line to use the shower. Seriously. Prabhupada didn't demand, I'm your guru. He was just so patient until it finally clicked in their heads. Oh, Swamiji's actually, he's our guru. Prabhupada was very patient.
You want to give it a try, Vishaka? Yeah.
What's the situation?
I don't know.
Why?
What's your dysfunctional pattern? Only you know.
Monu can advise you. Could you help me to give
Okay,
me some,
what's the incident? What did you see?
okay, Jay was invited one time for prasadam at our place and he didn't show up.
Okay.
And we cooked everything from morning to afternoon, and he didn't show up.
Okay.
So-
All right. So,
So,
okay, when you and Amala Harinam
yeah,
didn't come for dinner when you promised, that's what happened.
that's right.
Okay? You got that in one sentence.
Yeah.
What I made up about it was?
That Jay took me for granted and completely ignored that there was a lunch that I had arranged.
So he took you for granted, didn't realize how much work you had to go through?
Yes.
Okay. And totally took me for granted. That's what you made up?
Yes.
Okay. How'd that make you feel?
Punching Jay?
No.
A what?
We're talking about not what you felt like doing. What did you feel like inside?
Okay.
Angry.
I felt angry. I felt maybe I have lost maybe I'm just not of the same age group anymore after getting married. Like before I was
You
in
felt
relationship,
left out.
I
You felt
left
angry. You felt, I had the word, what? Well, she's not feeling inadequate. She worked like a dog all day. Unappreciated, right. And,
Thank you.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And what I'd like, right? That's what I'd like is if Jay can prioritize my lunch. And if he's not coming,
To let you know.
not showing up, then he tells me 5 a.m. itself so that I don't have to go and buy groceries and prepare lunch. And just maybe a genuine apology, an explanation of what happened.
Try that again in 2 sentences.
Okay. Just a genuine explanation and apology of what happened and an assurance that it won't happen again so that I can cook again.
Right. Okay. So pass the mic to Jai. So your process was, let's see here if we can, oop. No.
One more. That's not the steps.
Well, yes it
Okay,
is,
yeah, yeah.
more or less. Okay, so you want to repeat it back?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I thought we were supposed to discuss this amongst all
Okay,
the peers.
you have to use just the, you have to use, you're doing excuses. It's not going to work here, Jai. Let me go back to the feedback wheel. Okay, you're going to repeat back. So, what did she see? When I didn't come for dinner, okay, the story she made up was?
She invited me and I didn't go.
So what did she make up about that?
She felt...
Tell her that.
He is. He's looking there.
Well, she's saying she, but
Oh, you.
you're you.
You felt left out, and you felt that I took you for granted. But that
And,
was...
yeah, okay, no buts. Never use the word but anywhere in this.
I'm sorry about that.
No. Not
yet.
And
Not yet.
how did that make her feel? That made you feel?
That I took you for granted, and I didn't appreciate it.
Unappreciated?
Your
Yeah.
invite.
Yeah, unappreciated.
And
Angry a little bit. She was angry. She
And you
cooked
were
all
angry
day.
too?
Yeah. She cooked all day. And what would she like? And you would like me to?
You would like me to apologize to you, so...
She didn't say that.
Genuine explanation is that I totally forgot about that. Because...
And she wanted that, and next time...
And I assure you, next time I will be, a day before that, your invite, I'll be present at your doorsteps.
I'll put it in my day timer and my Google wall and whatever, you know.
Definitely.
Calendar. And if I can't come, I will let you know.
And if I won't be able to make it, I will let you know in advance.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
That's good.
And today,
You're not even asking for an apology. You're just asking for a change in behavior, right? So that's good, right? He got it. Yeah, very good.
Thank you. Prabhu, today in front of the entire congregation, I ask for your forgiveness. Please.
That process is important because you're acknowledging the story she tells, and you can understand why she could tell that story, and you acknowledge how she felt. And that sense of validation, especially, like, 'cause she used that pretty strong word, anger. Anger is a pretty strong word. Pretty strong word. But when you validate a person's feelings like that, their experience and their feelings, that helps them to fully name their emotions, and it helps them to tame it. And physiologically what happens when you help someone with their emotions to process it and or name it, their brain produces another hormone called GABA. And that GABA, if there's any escalation going on in their body, it'll help actually to soothe that. That's physiologically what happens. So it's very important to follow that process, and because it becomes actually a heart-to-heart communication, because you're both speaking from the mode of goodness, you're acknowledging that from the mode of goodness, and she's more likely to receive that in the mode of goodness, and then everything's all good after that.
And it doesn't become anything bigger than it was. It was just she cooked all day and she'd like some notice if you can't come again. And, you know, and you've heard that, oh, I didn't know she cooked all day long and then I forgot, right? So then you'll be more careful to put it in your day timer, and I doubt that's going to happen again. So you've repaired all that. So it's done its job, and nobody's overly hurt or overly criticized, and I hope. Yeah.
Do you accept my apology?
She's just bringing it up.
So when am I coming again?
When are you going? When is she inviting you again?
Yeah. So
and I'm looking forward to the next meal, right? All right. So we are out of time. Maybe tomorrow we can start with somebody practicing it one more time, because it takes a few practices before you get it down. And thank you all very much for your wonderful questions, your nice participation, and we'll see you tomorrow at 9:59.
We encourage you to come on time. Like, I could complain and say, oh, you people are always late. How are you going to respond to that? You're going to like, who is this guy? I'm never going to come again. Or I could say, Prabhu, when I see you coming late, I feel really concerned that there's some important information we're going to give in the beginning of the session, and I'm a little worried that if you're not there to catch that information in the beginning, it may be hard for you to understand what's going on in the rest of the session. So I would feel greatly relieved and less stressed if you came in the beginning. That's a lot easier to hear probably than, why are you always late? So encourage everyone to come on time so we can make sure we are able to transmit all the information we're trying to transmit for your benefit and for everyone's benefit and for Krishna's benefit, because he wants you all to be happy. Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Once again, everyone, it was such a nice session. Thank you, Prabhus. Who all will be practicing feedback wheel this evening? Okay, I'll be practicing. Come on, Prabhus, you won't be practicing it? I asked who all will be practicing feedback wheel today. Okay, that's great. So tomorrow's session would be also Q&A, right? Okay. All right. So in the form you might have filled a question. So those will be answered tomorrow. And if you also would like to meet them and have a personal check-in for 20 minutes or so, please reach out to me, and I can arrange it maybe today, tomorrow, yeah, or even on Monday. Altars are open, and they will be open until 6:30. Govinda's is also open. They have very nice menu, pani puri and pizza. And then, sorry? Boutique is also open, and we have some new stock that just arrived, so if you want to take a look. Thank you so much, Prabhu. I'll just recite Vanchakalpa now. Okay. Vanchakalpata rupescha kripa sandubhye vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah Anantakoti Vaishnavrindi ki jai. And tomorrow we'll also do a group photograph and hand over the certificates for this little seminar too. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. We also need some help putting the chairs back in their place and resetting the whole setup for further events. So if you can help, please, we'll appreciate it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I'm sorry if I'm correcting you because of no reason, but let's try to hold the chair from the top side because it has this created. Otherwise, it usually break out easily.